Hey, everybody. In today's episode, what we're talking about is the agentic advantage beyond the AI pilot paradox. Before I begin, that's the wrong title. Was that the right title? Was that the wrong title? I don't know.
It is for
Because
McKinsey. Yeah, go ahead.
It is from McKinsey because I was like, that's not what I was prepping for today. So I'm like, okay. Anyway, I'm joined today by Brian, Beth, and the June me.
It's hard to say my name, I know.
So this conversation, I actually I didn't say Andy correctly.
No, you're freezing a little bit.
You were freezing, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's because I think I'm on the wrong Wi-Fi. But just let me get this show running, and then I'll come back. I'll come back because I know it's gonna mess up. So I wanted to go through this episode. I kind of wanted to take in a couple directions. Now, I know we first wanted to talk about just the McKinsey report. It's called Seizing the Agentic AI Advantage. It was on June 13th, 2025. But I think it's important because if for those who follow, there's a person named Nate Jones, and he has written a Substack. He has a TikTok video and a video on it too. So TikTok video, and a Substack on why he believes the message that McKinsey is presenting is flawed, and it's really something better. It's contrary to what Andre Karpathy talked about at the Y Combinator startup event called Software 3.0. So there's different angles that I wanted to take through that, but I guess let's start with I'd love to know what everybody's thoughts are on the McKinsey report to begin with.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say that might be two shows. And in fact, I was thinking of it as two shows. Like we could do the McKinsey today, and then we could actually bring in that counter viewpoint and do that again. So maybe we get to it today, but if we don't get to it today, that's all right.
Okay, because I think it's important to know, because when I was looking, and just kind of my point of view on this is like what Nate was saying was the exact kind of thought process I had with this report. And his big argument was like, oh, McKinsey, it doesn't seem that McKinsey is looking at it from the builder perspective,
right?
But purely looking at it at a top kind of futuristic, hey, this is potential, but like from builder. Anyway, so I'll come back because my internet's off, but like, yeah, let's kick it off.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, like, I haven't read Nate, so maybe that's a good thing because I haven't seen that counter argument. I was actually really impressed with this report. I really was. Like, I'm not that McKinsey, I think, does bad work, obviously, but I thought, oh, this is in the right direction on how they are explaining things. And they really do a good job. I thought did a good job of explaining like horizontal use cases versus vertical use cases. I thought they did a good job of explaining the paradox, as they call it, the gap between teams saying they're using AI as opposed to getting value out of AI. I thought they did a good job of breaking down how there needs to be a rethinking, a relearning, perhaps a reteaching, reorg of how companies are going to set themselves up for success with the future of like agentic work and what that might look like. And to me, what I liked about it, and it's a hefty report. It's a hefty thing. Again, I think they did a good job. Whoever put it together, I think did a good job with it. What it really, I don't want to say boiled down to because it's such a good report overall. One of the things that was a big takeaway, I'll say for me, was, man, I really love that they pointed out that if you're just thinking that you can slap AI onto current processes, you might be able to do that. There are certainly processes where that will make sense, but be aware there's going to be processes where it's going to make a whole lot more sense to rethink it from the ground up, now knowing what we know about what AI can and can't do. And I really feel like that is smart. I really wish I was talking to more businesses today who are asking me questions like that. And it's okay that they're not. I mean, that's what we do as consultants, right? We have those conversations. We educate where we can. We say, here, don't paint yourself in a corner because I think this is coming, or whatever the case is. But I just really love the way they called it out. It wasn't like AI doesn't work. It wasn't like AI is solving everything. It was more of a, here's how we are seeing it, obviously from their viewpoint as consultants themselves, a huge consulting agency. Here's how we're breaking this down to vertical and horizontal, but also here's how we think businesses should be thinking about this in terms of future state. And how do you bridge that gap? How do you get from our whole team is now using AI self-reported to, but we're only seeing a 7% or worse, we don't even know how to collect the KPIs that would be necessary to figure out whether this is actually making an impact or not. And I mean, I literally was on a call yesterday with a client who we had just finished training on Gemini and did some Gemini as well as a lot of other sales training, but Gemini was part of that, as well as Google Notebook LM. And they said what a lot of people would say is, we think there's going to be a lot more training with you guys. However, our executive team is going to want to see the KPIs. They're going to want to see the impact of what you just trained before we will be able to see new budget to bring you guys back. And that's every company everywhere, right? Show me that this is working. And so I thought the report did a good job. I'll stop there. There's a lot from this report, and I haven't seen Nate. And by the way, I love Nate too, and the way he thinks on his reports. So I look forward to seeing that sort of counter viewpoint. But that's what I took away from the report broadly, I guess.
So I'll say that my understanding is that the McKinsey report paints a very futuristic vision of how autonomous agents will self-coordinate and share context and sort of natively automate business processes. And that's a very futuristic thing. And by that, I mean, that's not happening next year. And that's not happening, within enterprise, except in very constrained vertical silos where it's almost programmatically deterministic what the business process is. And that pushes you immediately back to the idea of putting AI in as an automation step on existing processes that are well defined. So, and that's Nate's complaint about that. And I don't think he's alone in that, because he references in his article about this McKinsey report, he references the technical leadership out there in the world of AI sort of universally complaining about the consultant speak that this McKinsey report represents. And so while I don't dismiss the idea that eventually there will be sophisticated agents and the necessary protocols to allow those agents to, individually kind of collaborate with other agents in the enterprise and define, an overall work process and optimize those work processes in a new and sort of non-human way. The argument that Nate makes is that in reality, they're missing the ability to share context, to achieve orchestration in alignment with an overseer's main strategic objective. Although you can confab or fascinate the idea of a CEO level orchestrator agent that's managing this, and we've seen demonstrations of that kind of thing. But all of those things have sort of current fundamental technical limitations that make them difficult to implement. And so the complaint on the technical leadership side, say the CTO group that's represented by the people who are working with AI and building systems that, that are trying to achieve this kind of autonomous multi-agent collaboration in, say, vibe coding, for example, which is one of the kind of the frontiers of where this is applied. They're basically saying, wait a second, we've run into constraints that just make that vision that McKinsey's trying to sell to an enterprise just, it's a recipe for disaster. And I think that's his point.
I mean, I don't know. I hear what you guys say, what the rest of you guys want to say. I mean, like, I have not read Nate, so I do want to hear how he's saying it. But I guess I'm not seeing that in the report. When you look and dive into like their chapter 3, and you talk about and it breaks down what it's going to take. And you guys know I love talking about data, but they also talk about governance. They talk about technology architecture. They talk about strategy, from talking about how in what we would call a traditional AI workflow right now, we would say like, it's overused, right? People are like, oh, it's an agentic or it's an agent workflow. And we go, it's a Zapier connection that has 6 points to it. And 2 of them are LLMs. All 5 of us would agree and say like, it's an AI workflow. AI is part of that Zapier workflow, or N8N or Make or whatever. It's impressive. It's not revolutionary. It's implementing and figuring out where AI can take over part of this larger process. And I think what they're pointing out, and what I appreciate that they're pointing out, is that is a today solution, but you should definitely be thinking about tomorrow when AI might take over entire work systems. And what does that look like? And I do appreciate the, hey, look, future speak. And by the way, I don't think we're thinking about more than 24 months here. So for any size business, that's a fast turnaround to say, what does great look like? What does that future possibly, we don't know, but possibly look like in 24 months? And now let's work back. And then to say, had to have great people in organizations like Jumi, who's going to sit there and look at the tech stack and say, guys, if that's what we think is going to happen in 24 months and we want to be a major player, man, oh man, are we in trouble today? Because we don't even have the tech stack to maybe solve for the basic input LLMs into 1 or 2 for 1,000 different reasons that Jimmy might uncover. I'm just using you as an example, Jimmy, because I know you're really great at this stuff. You're great at process. I don't know if everybody knows this. Great. Jimmy is great at processes and keeping things together. He's like, you're the glue of the show when it comes to our meetings and stuff like that. We look to Jimmy because Jimmy, you can sort of put everything in order and say, this is what the system is. So I don't know if you have any feedback on that, but I guess I'm not saying Nate disagrees with this part of it, but man, do I love that somebody's saying, you want that? Man, I wish you would look at your data today, because you can't build a simple AI solution, never mind an agentic AI solution.
Do they give an example of how, a company in their vast portfolio of client companies has taken this sort of future think approach and said, okay, now we're going to reconsider and we're going to implement agents along the model of the agentic mesh that McKinsey describes?
They do, I'll throw it to somebody else because I can't get it that fast. I know I saw in here where they talk about an example, but I would have to look, Andy, to see, but come back to me on that to see if there's a specific example for that. I'll look.
What I saw is they gave a simulated example of a bank and how it would transition from point A to point B as part of their development of whatever their particular tech stack was, or there was an offering that it was a product that it was trying to do. But it isn't any specific real world example. Like company XYZ is doing this, right?
Yeah,
so
they did this. They've done this over the last 12 months, that kind of thing.
Right. And so what I saw a lot in the McKinsey side of things is they broke down what data they could, right? They broke down what the responses were from their network of companies, people they consulted with, and gave a lot of good information about the state of where companies are. And then they introduced the main chunk of what they're trying to do, and that's this agentic mesh, right? Or which is the idea is essentially a distributed or decentralized network of agents working in concert. So, and again, if we're going to compare the two, Andy, you were very succinct about this. Is it's a matter of at no point do they really give the technical side of things of how the tech team of any company will take you from A to B. Right. And I think, like you said, that's where Nate has the issue. Now, the idea of a future framework and a future system that could accomplish these things so that it could provide the benefits that they're laying out, I think that's a great idea. But I think any proponents from the technical side and all the technical teams is they don't work. LLMs and the current agentic systems don't work anything like that, and they have some serious caveats on and pitfalls on how to get it there. They would have to they'd have to invent new things, or something completely new would have to come out to address those issues. And I think that's the biggest conflict point. Is that is a nice dream for a CTO and a nightmare for the implementers, because there's no way to cross the chasm, right? And so a bridge would have to be made. And I think that's where the McKinsey report comes into, hey, these are some things that we would think are great ideas and great implementations for CEOs of whatever size, and we should try and develop and investigate towards that so that it could be implemented. And then from the if Nate kind of collates and puts together the techie point of view, and it's like, we have no method of doing that yet. And a lot of times what happens is between the executive suite and the technical team is they both don't speak each other's language. So they don't, it's very hard to translate between the two of them. It's like, what are, tech teams going to the executives, what are you talking about? It doesn't have that capability. And the executives are saying, hey, tech team, go build this thing. You can build anything, right? It's like, but it literally doesn't exist yet. So I think that's where the biggest conflict is coming from. But in terms of future thought, in terms of, hey, this might be a great resource or an idea to work towards, that's pretty much what you're getting out of the McKinsey report, or at least that's what I got out of the McKinsey report. From Nate's side of things, I totally get where he's coming from, and I agree with him on for the most part. It's, hey, these are the real issues now. Instead of us having to try and invent all of these other things, we see that Karpathy's layout with software 3.0 is going to be the more realistic breakdown and where you'll get the biggest advantages now. And then maybe sometime down the line, when they when they fix big gaps in LLM tech, where memory, so it doesn't have I think it's called antegrade amnesia is how they describe it, and those kinds of things, because the memory isn't shared. Like Andy, you laid out a couple of these points. So I think it might be here is the now, and we have to invent some new things, then we can have the future that you envision, McKinsey.
I don't want, because I want to hear from Beth and Carl. I don't want to. I said before the show I was going to come into this one hot, and I don't want to dominate any of it. But what I would say to that, Jimmy, is why can't it be both? Why does it have to be one or the other? I feel like if you attack governance, if you attack data, if you attack tax stacks,
that's not the part that's the problem. That's not the part that
I mean, you talk about the chasm.
It's the technical gaps. Like for an orchestration AI mesh network that they're thinking of, you need a higher level of you need real memory between the LLMs to be able to communicate with each other,
sure,
and take that state from agent to agent. that doesn't exist. It needs to be invented. Like the technology there doesn't exist. So yes, you can work on all of those aspects. They don't have to be one or the other. It's just the technical limitations of the technology. Those things have not been invented yet to address the final implementation of what you're talking about. But all those other layers of things, the governance, the data, and all those kinds of things, absolutely. That should be done regardless of this. And I think that's what you're really picking up there. And that I don't think there's the disagreement.
But okay, we know with technical chasms that in AI, we've talked about it 100 times in this show, the things that we feel very confident are coming in the future, and the things we can't, we always admit where, well, I didn't see that coming. We have drops that come out on some days, the 12 days of, AI or ChatGPT or whatever it was, OpenAI. And then there was drops there and you're like, I wouldn't have thought of that. That's interesting. That's different. I didn't see that. But I think for the most part, I feel like the memory problem will be solved. So if I believe that, if I'm the leader of a company and I want to take this seriously, I'm gonna hire people who are going to come in, be it consultants or inside. I'm going to hire our team, right, to come in and get me ready for that. And I believe that even though it doesn't exist today, that I will have a future state memory solution with AI where LLMs do know what they've done going back in history. Then shouldn't I be making sure that whatever I'm doing today to solve today's problems does not accidentally paint me into a corner for tomorrow's solutions? That's where I say, sure, it doesn't exist, but man, you better be thinking about this. If you truly believe and you listen to whoever you listen to for information, maybe this show, and you think, God, they keep saying this is coming, I better prepare and make sure that I don't organize some solution that solves today's problems that quite literally puts me in a corner tomorrow because I solved today without thinking about tomorrow with these technologies.
Right. And I think that's a healthy attitude for any business, especially as it scales larger. And you want to look at that as when you look at technology, and especially if your business is technology based. But I think that's not the biggest conflict. I think once we get a chance to break down from both sides of the conversation is the idea that working towards looking to the future, putting in the steps that you need to sustain or make your company a little more stronger foundation, things like that. That hasn't changed. That's still the same message as it's always been. I think the biggest part comes in the translation, and some of these big jumps too quickly. If it says go down this path and you go down this path, it can bite you in the butt, right? Mm-hmm. Klarna, for example, we're going to replace 700 people and save $40 million. And then they had to roll that back because it was like, no, our main product tanked because of it. Okay, now we have to do it. All right. Air Canada and having their chatbot said, oh yeah, you get all this stuff. All right, well, it's verified, and that bit Air Canada in the butt. What I think here is the level of the translation between the two. The tech side of things never has a problem with trying to implement stuff. It's always within the constraints that the executive side say. If the executive side says, do everything that you need to do, no repercussions, tech will be like, yeah, sure, let's go invent some new stuff. We'll go for it. But it always comes with that leash or with that noose, right? Yeah. It's like, you built this thing and now it's terrible. Everybody's fired. It's like, you just told us to go and try and do it as fast as possible. Yeah. So I think that's where the baseline needs and those kinds of conversations and that lack of translation between them and the expectations of each group. that's where it comes down, what it comes down to. And, you know, hey, I agree that yes, 12 months, 24 months to line, someone's going to come up with something, you know. I'm pretty sure every 12 months the Sakana folks go, oh yeah, we're just going to mash up some more new stuff and invent a new process. It's like, oh yeah, let's evolve that memory thing. You know, it's that kind of thing. So I don't think there's anything that you're taking away from the McKinsey report or what's important from it that isn't accurate. I think where any pushback comes from the tech side is tech folks telling the executives, you don't know what you're talking about, so don't have any expectations. Let's build towards it and we'll see what we get. And if you're fine with that, which you normally are not, then you know, that's where we're like, whoa, pump the brakes a little bit. Yeah.
Well, and if you look at it, it makes sense, right? McKinsey is always talking to business leadership. That's their audience. That's the language they're going to communicate in. Y Combinator is talking to builders who want to like disrupt stuff and find opportunities, right? So they're going to go in that direction. Those messages are potentially accurate for their audience, meaning that it gives value to those audiences, and the source of the value gets the reflected, like, oh, you know what you're talking about. But this is, as you've pointed out, Junmi, this is a fundamental challenge, right? The vision, the leadership vision of what the thing is, and then the boots on the ground thing of what the thing is. And I think the other piece that is happening with AI is, again, a fundamental misunderstanding of what the technology is. We're going to solve memory. We've got better AI that reasons. It reasons now. And once we solve its amnesia problem, it's going to be fine. It's not an amnesia problem. It's a like block problem, right? Like the amnesia is that when it goes below a certain amount, it no longer has that in the context window. It doesn't remember the context window. It perceives the context window as a full block, right? Like I don't have a space in my head. And even when we right, our brains are very similar to this, so we're just like doing stuff, but there isn't a space in the AI's head where it remembers this, kind of, because now we have memory, right? Like, please remember this. That's just a holding thing that says, go ahead and append this to the context block, right? So it gets inserted each time. We talk about it in words that we use for human functions because we don't really have words for other functions. And I think that is continuing to bite us, because the way that we continue to talk about this implies functions that are not actually what are happening. And when it works, oh, it remembered, right? Carl said this the other day. It was like, oh, I love O3. I'm not going back. It knows exactly what I want. It remembered the last conversation that we had, and now I don't have to prompt it as specifically, right? Now, Carl understands what's happening, right? So it's not like, oh, you forgot my wife's birthday. You're supposed to remind me, right? Like that's not going to be a thing that you ask it to remember, and it reminds you in that context. But I'm not sure people who are not this deep in the bubble really grok that difference.
I think it's important that you address this question about context window and memory, and important of freewheeling agents out there interacting. You want there to be shared memory. And that's the coordination conundrum. There is any one of these individual agents that's in this the envisioned agentic mesh needs to have current context and long-term memory about all the things that were learned by all the agents. And how do you do that in a compute efficient way? That's what the technical people are saying. Wait a second. Imagine this as a thought experiment. Let's suppose that I want to rethink my organization entirely. And right now it's pretty hierarchical. I have a CEO, I have a CTO, I have a CMO, and those people get together in a room and they make some decisions and then they delegate down through their organizations. Now, imagine that I follow the McKinsey prescription and I say, okay, I'm going to rethink my entire organization. And what McKinsey's talking about is a lot of those people that are now doing that hierarchical sort of cascading organization, those are all replaced by independent agents that have super intelligence that are, I shouldn't say independent, they're not independent, they're connected and they're coordinating and collaborating, but they're autonomous, so they can take actions independently within constraints in their particular domain. But suddenly this agent has made a decision that does something that's in conflict with another agent's actions that are somehow conjoined in the overall business process. I won't try to belabor this analogy by trying to explain that in an actual example, but let's just say that one of the things that this agent wants to do in the marketing realm is logistically very difficult or expensive, and this other agent doesn't want to do that. Where is the resolution layer? Where's the orchestration layer that's in the McKinsey model? Because what I fear, and I think is a legitimate criticism of McKinsey's approach in the boardroom, is that the takeaway from the executive level is going to be, oh, I've got to start planning now. In order to be competitive in my market space, I got to plan now for a world where I really don't have that many humans managing these conflicts and orchestration issues. There are a bunch of agents that work seamlessly together because McKinsey used the word seamlessly. Okay. So what they've grasped onto is, oh, I'm buying into a vision of the future where there isn't a human agent collaboration connection to a large degree anymore, and I can work with a lot fewer people. And it's true that AI will reduce the workforce to some degree, but the technical people who are actually trying to implement this in the world of AI systems, they're saying, no, the better model is you need to have humans exercising their agents, and those humans have to be the coordinating and orchestrating layer. Mm-hmm. And that's antithetical to what the agentic mesh idea is of the fully autonomous automated organization powered by individual LLMs that somehow have solved the question of how does this one LLM efficiently compute the full memory and context of everything that's applicable in this organization that has been undertaken by every other agent in the organization.
Yeah, I think that's I agree with that. I mean, I think that's a solid point. And I think you are saying, like, if the intent is that I have to jump so far, and I didn't pick this up from the McKinsey report, but I also might have just missed that part of it, the organizing layer, the operator level of it. if you, I think it's a mistake to, and if this is what they were saying, to jump so far to, oh, AI will run this and humans, because there's such a transition period in there. I was just literally saying this to a new intern I have, and I was saying, at what point do salespeople in my world need to know the back end of it? In other words, if I'm teaching you Windows today, would I start with DOS? At some point, we were sitting on a Google Meet call, and I was saying to him, I said, we're using this Google Meet through a GUI, through a system that's so good and so reliable that you and I would never think to open up the hood and look at the inspect or whatever. It would be weird. It would be weird to do that. However, at least in my experience of coming out of college at 2000 till today, 25 years later, there was a lot of transition years in there where you both needed to know enough about DOS and also know enough about a GUI system in order to make everything play. And that's the period I think we're in for the next 12 to 24 to maybe even longer months than that, to your point, Andy. So yes, I agree with you. Don't look so far in the future that you're like, AI agents will sort of communicate and everything's going to be hunky-dory and we're going to sit back as humans and come into play where we are. It's like, well, no, but if we do solve some of the initial memory problems, by the way, I think you and Beth, you said it perfectly, which is it's not even about solving the memory problem. It's about what my wife and I would joke with each other and say, as people do sometimes, to say, well, I think you have a little bit of selective memory. What we really want is a selective memory solution. We don't want an all memory solution. That would be very hard to scale. If ChatGPT had to remember literally every word or token that I put in there and be able to pull it back in context forever, that's not something that sounds like it can scale to me. That sounds like just an insane amount of memory and like data centers that would have to exist. So what we're really saying is like, oh no, we need a system that remembers just what it needs to know at the right time that it needs to know it, and no more, no less. And that is a fundamentally something we haven't necessarily seen yet solution. So like that's coming, but I agree with you, Andy. Like if what you felt like McKinsey was saying is like, hey, executives, you need to prepare for this agentic world where it's fundamentally different. I would say, yes, I agree with you. That is too far. What I would be preparing people for is, hey, we feel confident these types of things are going to happen. And we need to be more prepared to have people not only understand the building blocks currently of prompting methods and things like that, until some point that everything is so reliable that you wouldn't think to go back and look at an original prompt. You would just use the operator method or use the browser, and the browser does all the prompting in the background and you stop looking at the prompts. I guess someday that will eventually happen, just like I would not look at a DOS command prompt. But I think there's a divide there between today and when that day happens, where I feel like prompts are so reliable, they never mess up, they never hallucinate, that I would stop looking at the prompts and knowing and understanding how that works. That's where I think we need to be over the next couple months. And it's frankly, honestly, tricky. It's very tricky to deploy that, because all the points you made, Jimmy, too, about how do you get people, who leads that? How do you get tech involved? How do you get the tech stacks correct? How do you do all that? Organize it, get everybody on the same page, leveling up together while also organizing the data and doing the literacy stuff you need to do and doing the data governance. And how do you move everything and rise that tide equally across all the channel locks without it doing this and tipping the boat? Very, very difficult. And I think there's a lot to be said for companies who are doing their best today, not even at enterprise level, small mid-market, who are trying to figure out how to organize this to secure their future state.
I just want to, for me, help us out here.
Where all of this kind of fell for me was just with how many clients, how many implementations we've done. When I read the McKinsey report from our enterprise level, I'm kind of getting a pessimistic view that enterprises have the capability to rewrite, which I believe, their operations, because essentially what you're looking to do, and more our clients, and the ones that are successful versus the ones that aren't, have the willpower to actually rewrite, not bolt on AI processes, just because there are some things that companies have built over time, decades worth, that are very hard to rewrite for them. Their businesses rely on whatever these processes are. And for true AI implementation, where some of the stuff McKinsey was talking about, and why Nate was very, like, he said in his video, he's kind of throwing shade at McKinsey, is because it's very, very difficult for some companies to do that. No matter how much CEO leadership will there is, their companies have just been built around certain systems that is very difficult for them to take on some of this stuff. It's a very, very big reason why we don't normally work with enterprise, just because we can't implement fast enough. It's too slow. and there's too many layers, and there's too many things that you have to go through, right? Versus like a medium-sized company where, right, with executive will, there will be, right? There'll be like, yeah, we're going to do this. And essentially it's like whoever is in your way will get them out of your way, or whatever process is in your way will get them out of your way and we'll go implement. Versus an enterprise, you can't just do that. And that's why I'm a little, when I say pessimistic, I'm like, yeah, your company is very ripe because you can't get out of your own way. You can't change, and it's not your fault. Like, even if you all want to, you've all created this box that you are now in, and now you can't get out of the box because it's layered on, layer by layer by layer, by decade by decade, by year. It's very tough to break. And even if like some people want to break it, there's too much interconnections related to it, whether it's your tech stack, whether it's your process, all that stuff. It's very, very difficult. And so some of that stuff, I'm like, oh, it resonated with me because I'm like, yeah, 100% agree. You got to prepare all that stuff. But if you've been self-confined and your business has been made through that, I was like, you may be in trouble, just because it's going to be very hard for you to essentially uncouple everything that you're built and rebuild it up from ground up. It is very, very difficult, from the change management piece to the text piece. We're seeing it from government level. It's like, oh, there's reasons why it's very difficult for you to reposition. It's like, this is why Microsoft Copilot is easy for you, because it's a bolt-on and you can add it. But to actually take advantage of what McKinsey and more tech optimists really want to do, that's hard. That is a hard thing for companies to do. And it's not necessarily because they don't have the will. It's because of all these things that they have. It's different per company. And it gets, for some, like, if you have like very full company buy-in, yeah, like you may be able to do it. But for some companies, it's just, I can see the pressure and the constraint that they're in. There's like so much FOMO, but they're like, how can we do it when we have all these things that make our business run? This is how our business is running. This is how we operate. This is how we generate revenue. And this new entity that we were trying to, it's easier to bolt on, but we can't do everything that AI is doing. And it's a threat to us because, again, that small little startup doesn't have that problem. Their entire business operation has been built on AI from the very beginning. And that's two different pieces. And that's where I'm seeing like I kind of within the first 30 minutes, I can already kind of hear where this prospect is going to be going.
Right. And part of, like, a light bulb went off for me when you were saying that, because I think what I thought we were talking about as the most important thing was the conversation that was being had with enterprise, with McKinsey, and what Andre Karpathy was saying at Y Combinator. It's just as important who he was talking to in Y Combinator.
Yep.
And the recent stuff we've been talking about like, hey, Y Combinator is literally asking for ideas. Can you destroy a large business, right? Do you have an idea to basically take an idea that takes a bunch of people and a bunch of processes, and with AI can build it ground up in a streamlined fashion that is more efficient, right? And that is, yes, of course, those two, like, if you have to convince the people that you're talking to, you're right, I can help you. You may not be saying that, right? Like, you're not walking in and saying, hey, did y'all see this? Because this is going to be a problem. We can help you think like a startup, but it's going to be really painful for everyone involved. And you as leaders may not be the right people to lead this process.
That happens a lot. I mean, Delma, who's saying it too, she's like, yes, I worked on a team creating and implementing an enterprise system. That's a huge bite to chew. It takes years.
Yeah.
100%. And what you're saying, Carl and Beth, absolutely what you're saying. You know, it reminds me, because my follow-up question is going to be like, so what? Does enterprise throw their hands up in the air? I mean, they're going to have to adapt in some way. Andy, I don't know, you know, you have a lot of executive experiences, do other people on the show, but like, where do you go? And it made me think of a book. And I'm not a huge reader. I tend to consume more like, you know, on my phone and stuff. But a book I happened to read not too long ago was called Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. And by the way, I think it's being made into a movie for like next year. I think Ryan Gosling is going to be in it. Jimmy's like, yes. But anyway, in that book, not giving anything away, it's such a big global, like whole earth problem that they're having in this book, that there is actually a woman that is designated, and, you know, it's a book, right? It's fiction, but she's got sort of like true power, and she's able to not have a whole lot of stopgaps. And so I wonder, when you think about it, that's it's very science fiction. Whether that would ever happen or not, I guess we would have to have like a true Earth type disaster happening, asteroids or otherwise, like this book. But it makes me wonder, is that what it's going to take from enterprise? Is it going to be one of these things where, be it consultant, be it internal, be a host of consultants? I'm surprised when I get on projects and the client asked me, are you okay with talking to some other consultant teams that we're also working with? And I think to myself, geez, I would hope so. Because like, why would I be like, no, only us, you know, and what we do or whatever? Like, yeah, I definitely want to know what those other consultant teams are also trying to help you with, because like it may impact how we try to help, and we're trying to be all on the same team here. So it's not a so what, can't do anything about it, close your eyes, right, for enterprise. But if you are enterprise, even if it does take a couple of years, isn't this something you need to be working towards? And I am sure McKinsey is saying, it's us. Bring us in. We'll help you get from here to there. I mean, good for them, I guess. I mean, they're a massive consulting agency. But what's the solution here as you guys see it? Because it has to change, even if it's messy, even if it's hard, even if it seems nearly impossible. I don't see how you survive, how you don't end up being a Kodak if you don't adjust.
One of the things that I think what will, I hope doesn't happen, but will have, I have 60-40, like just what I see is you will see falls. 1, 2, 3, you'll fall. And it'll take that type of fall that other companies are like, oh, this isn't a, you know, bolt on, this isn't a IT, this isn't a, like, we need, like, it becomes priority one, like like legit priority one, where it's like, hey, not just training, it's like, what does our system, how do we rejig our system, everything. Very, very few companies are actually thinking like that. It's like, oh, AI is cool, we'll put it in and we'll be efficient and all that, but we'll still keep our business operations. Like, no. When we talk about what we're talking about here, we're talking about like all your base, not just your eye roll processes, your actual, all your fundamental processes have to be rethought, and I would say rebuilt. You may lose revenue, and people don't like it. You may lose revenue for a quarter or two to rebuild everything, just because it's going to take you that long. And will your shareholders, from an enterprise level, will your shareholders be amenable to that? Will they accept that? Do you have the will to do it? But you may not have a choice, because you've got a bunch of these AI native companies breathing down on you and be like, they're crushing you because they can do a lot more than you can. And it may take that to get people to move. But I think it'll take a couple like big names to fall pretty quickly in succession. That's where I'm thinking that would be the only way that companies would actually go with it. Because if they continue to earn money, then it's like, sure, I want to get ahead, but like, do I really need to? It's going to take that. That's what it's, to me, that's what it's going to take.
And it may be inherently disadvantageous for an existing sort of major enterprise to invest in something that could transform their current configuration of operation using humans and antiquated systems. That capital investment is huge, and it's disruptive to the ongoing operation by nature.
Yep.
And so I'm pessimistic about the ability of a major enterprise, even though they already have an established catchment of customers, to compete with something that was, reborn, using AI. And I mean, I should say birthed using AI as a foundational architecture for delivery of whatever the service or product results are for that market. So when you talk about these major companies falling, I don't think we would be able to conceive of a way that they could have shifted from that model that they possessed that was working before as fast as the interloper that came with AI native approach. You can't compete with that. I can't envision the process internally, even though, McKinsey might tell us, look, you've got to adopt the agentic mesh method, because that's really what's happening in the startups that are being challenged by Y Combinator to, destroy you. You have to adopt that and do it. Just by its own nature, that project of conversion is inherently hobbled compared to the one that's going to deliver a brand new solution to the marketplace that's AI native.
Right.
Yeah.
Because what you need to, like in the enterprise, what you need everyone on board to be looking at the way they function in the whole system and share how something could replace them. And that is an inherent tension. I have no motivation to tell my enterprise boss how to replace me. I do maybe have a motivation to have a conversation with my cousin who has a really great idea for a startup, and I can give, like, now I'm in that process because I then will benefit from that value from the startup. And that is an inherent tension in all of this.
Listen, what you just said reminds me of Office Space, right? It's like, it's not that I don't have a motivation, Bob. It's like, and tell me what you do. Well, the thing is, I have 8 bosses that I respond to. 8? Yes, Bob, I have 8 bosses that I respond to. And so you're right. It is a very, very human condition to say, exactly. So somebody comes in and says, guys, this is hoorah, we're all moving in the right direction. Everybody's going to get amped up. This is going to be the best thing. Hey, first step, if you don't mind, could you break down every single process and program that you currently run and operate, and just give us a step-by-step of what it would really take to go from point A to point B? I mean, immediately as a person, you're going to go, are you just trying to replace me? Because it sounds like you're trying to replace me. No. We're going to totally keep you on board. But if you could just get that to us and tell us exactly what those processes are. Also, to Delma's point in the comments, also, if some of that's broken, we would love you to just surface that for us and tell us where that's currently not working in there. I mean, if you're any human ever, there's going to be some insecurity there that says, I feel like I'm going to do this and get replaced by AI to whatever. And so there's going to be people who sabotage. There's going to be people who drag their feet. There's going to be all sorts of different reasons why this does not go off swimmingly, even if you had top down, up and bottom enthusiasm to get this done. And I don't even think that's just enterprise. That's a lot of businesses. It's going to take really, really strong communication and constant communication in order to make sure that everybody feels like they're part of the team and that they are in fact secure, because you're not going to get any human to do something that they think their life is in jeopardy, their job, excuse me, not their life is in jeopardy, if it's going to affect their family, their ability to pay bills and all that. Yeah. Tell me to get on the AI train. Sure. I'll get right at that.
You heard that movie quote. I heard, you want the truth, you can't handle the truth.
Well, that too.
And like, now you want to know what's broken, right? Like, I've told you this is broken. I will go back.
Now you're concerned.
Now you're interested in solving it. Like, what? Yeah. This is this is a super juicy situation that I think we're just we're seeing it. There's so much tension in it that we see like little pops of like, ooh, that's a fissure that just happened. Wow, this is happening here. But I think it's really important that everybody understand what is happening inside the pressure cooker, right? And part of what I'm wondering is, are we asking AI to do something? Are we asking AI to do the wrong thing? AI is great at recognizing patterns, and it's and a bunch of people have used it for language. It's great at coding because coding is a language, right? Can we use AI to interpret between these different languages that people are speaking? It's all English, right? But when someone in AI talks about memory, it means one thing. When a leader who doesn't totally understand talks about memory, it's a different thing, right? So are there those pieces that AI could analyze, like the structural communication, and perhaps help that? Because that would be an interesting option. That would be an interesting experiment to do, and also be able to, if it doesn't affect the bottom line, like if it's not a return on investment, I suspect it will be something like a feel good, like, oh, I get it now. And I know that if I ask my AI, who understands my priorities, my stuff, it can communicate to me in the way that's important to me, right? And that, just because we've just had this in AI, you need to be using AI that is prompted to give you actual results and not make you feel really smart and really good, right? Because that, like when your interpreter does that, that is so not helpful.
An entire enterprise going, you know what? It turns out, guys, we're fine.
Yeah.
We've all gone and checked, and we've all used ChatGPT. You told us to go ask ChatGPT. It turns out we're doing pretty good. Wow. This is amazing. Like, stop, we're good. What I want to say here is, but number one, Beth, I just threw it in our channel and our Slack, not in the show channel, because I think you have a great show title idea, which is, are we asking AI to do the wrong thing? So I threw that in there because I think like, ooh, that's a fun topic. Two, I want to say, I think we solved it here, guys, today. So that's exciting. We've solved this issue. And, it's always great to be part of a solution and not a problem, right? In all seriousness, three, like, it just reminds me, to say this, because I don't think we say it enough. Like, I'll say for me personally, not to be sappy about it, but man, do I feel lucky that I get to talk to you guys every day. Because this is like, I get to read this report and I go, oh, this is how I'm thinking about it, whatever. Then I come to, spend an hour with you guys and the folks in the chat as well, who take their time to hang out with us live, and everybody who's watching us have the case. And I go, wow, I'm better for this. And I hope that's the way other people feel about this too, is like, no, we don't have the solution. I don't think anybody does, including McKinsey, but isn't it amazing that we're talking about it? Isn't it amazing that we're opening up new ideas and having discussions about this? Because it is very real world and it's going to happen. And so I'm just like super, super grateful to each of you guys because of what you bring to the conversation. I just walk away all the time thinking like, man, I'm better for this. So hopefully everybody who's listening to us feels the same way. That's always been the part of the show. The idea of the show was, come hang out with us, come listen to what we're talking about, and walk away having a different perspective, a different idea, new ideas, whatever it might be, so that you can stay up to date with this. Hey, if you want to join us real quick, 2 different kind of great ways to do that. Obviously, our live shows Monday to Friday at 10 a.m. You can always join us on YouTube in the live chat like all our fine folks have today. But you can also keep the conversation going inside our Slack community. And you would just go to the Daily AI Show community.com in order to sign up for that. We also have more of an asynchronous way to kind of keep on going outside of the shows. And that's through our newsletter. You can go to our main website, thedailyishow.com, to sign up for that. It goes out every Sunday. We just passed the year mark with that newsletter, and it continues to grow. So if you like the types of conversations we have on the live show, that's another way to do it. We also are growing our network and beginning to do other stuff. We have the Sci-Fi AI show. We have the Conundrum episodes that go out on Saturday, which is a little small thing, but it's still interesting idea. And the vibe coding and other things. So, as our Daily AI Show community grows, we hope you guys can grow along with us. We appreciate you all. And I really do hope this conversation was helpful to a bunch of you all, just to think about what might possibly be coming in the future. So with that, we'll say goodbye, and we will see you tomorrow when Junmi is hosting us for all the AI news. And you don't want to miss that intro. So be here on time. Till tomorrow, guys.
Aloha.